Hi everyone and welcome back to the series. We are going to build a full stack application with Supabase and React. This is the second video of the series, so make sure you check out the first video of the series. In the first video we created the authentication flow for our app, and in this video we are going to persist data so we can create a watch list. So make sure to hit the subscribe button and enjoy the video. See you later.
Alright, so before we continue with the database logic, let me add some CSS. Okay, so I will get some color palette from colorhub.add and add it to our index CSS. Okay, and here we can say something like that. So this is just some basic CSS we will be adding here. All right. Now let's add some styling to our layout. Well, so let's say here, give this a name header. We need to add the app CSS file. We have to name it class name, not class. Okay, and here let's remove all of that. Let's say header brown color light, the color will be dark. Let's add some box sizing, border box for all of our elements. So what's that space in here? I don't know. So let's continue. Okay, let's fix that problem. Here we can say display flags. Okay. Let's give them some padding. Style none. Okay, this already looks a bit better. Okay, and let's add a container with the max width of maybe 900 pixels. And let's center that. And let's add it to our main back here. Okay. Yeah. Could have made it simpler, but should be okay for now. Okay, so what I want to do now is when we are logged in, we want to fetch this movies, where we then can make that Tinder thing. We're gonna like and dislike the movies, and then we will be storing the movie IDs in our watch list. So let's start by fetching the movies. So for that, let's go into our home page. Okay, so here we are going to fetch the movies. So for that, let's add the use effect hook. And here we'll be fetching movies. Let's create that function, which need to be async. And then we're going to need Axios to fetch the data actually. So let's install it by yarn. Then we can import it inside of home.js. Okay, and then here we can say const data and await Axios get request. And here we are going to fetch the movies from the movie database. So for that, let me copy that point. Okay, since we don't get random movies from the movie database, so we have to create our own random movie lists. So for that, we are going to use the discover movies endpoint. And here we will be needing to pass some params. So we can choose a page. And for our randomness, let's here say math random. And I guess there are like 500 pages we can choose from. So let's say math.random and multiply it by 501. And what we also need is our API key. So for that, let me copy that. So I'm not going to store it now in the env file. Should be okay for that. Okay, so let's try that out. So if we get our data object, let's simply console log that. Okay, let's check our console. And we fetched now from page 472 20 movies. Okay, so this works fine. So now we can render them on our, we could render them in our body here. So so before we render them, let's add another module, which is the React Tinder module npm. Yeah, it's actually called React Tinder card. Okay, so let's install that with yarn. And here you can see it creates this React Tinder swipe ability. Okay, so let's add it with yarn, not with npm. Okay, now import it. I guess it's Tinder card from React Tinder card. And down here in our body, we'll be calling the render movies function, which I'm going to create now. Here we will be rendering the Tinder cards, but for that, what I forgot is we have to save our movie data. So let's import use state and create a state for that, for our movies. Okay, set it initially to an empty string. And down here, we set movies to data.results. We remove that. And then we here can say return movies.map. For each movie, we're going to return a Tinder card. And like that. And inside of this, let's create a component for that. Let's name it movie card. So this will be our movie cover, which we then will be swiping from left to right. Okay, so this will get a movie as a prop. Then here we can say movie.title. And back here in our home.js, let's call it here inside of it, movie card. And let's pass the movie. And of course we have to import it. Let's do that. Okay, so now we have our movies and the Tinder card component. Let's maybe add some CSS to that for now, so we can test that better. Let's say for now 300 pixels width and height of 500 pixels. Give it a background color of brand color. Let's check that out. Okay, this looks like this for now. So as you see, we can already drag and drop that. We get a warning that each child in the list should have a unique key prop. So let's add that. Here we simply can say movie.id. And we don't want to display them underneath of each other. So we want to display them so let's add some CSS for that. So let's give this a class of movie wrap, or let's create a div called movie wrapper class with the class movie wrapper. And here we set position to relative and position of a movie will be absolute. Okay, so now they are all behind each other. This already looks good. What we now can do is, let's center that. So let's do this by, we give this also a width of 300 pixels. Just like that. Okay, so this is not a CSS video, so it's okay to handle it like that. Okay, so now we can swipe these movies away. Okay, so we get 20 movies now. When we reload the page, we get another 20 movies. Okay, so the next thing will be to save the movies we move to the right side, to the like side. So we want to store the movie IDs in our database. So for that, let's go to Supabase and let's create a table in our database. So when you click here on database, then we can click here on new. So you also could create a new table with the SQL editor. So maybe I can make another movie for that. So let's click on new, and here inside we can give this table a name. So this will be Watchlists. Description user watchlists. I don't know. We are going to enable the row level security. So we will be adding some security policies after that. And here now we have to add some columns to our table. So each row will have a unique ID. And what we want to add is the user ID. And we're going to link that to the user's ID. Okay, so we can specify that. So it's like the foreign key. What else we are going to need is the movie ID column, which we are going to save. Okay, so let's give this an, I don't know what we are actually going to need, but let's say in 4. Okay, and and let's say that movie ID cannot be null. Okay, click on save, and then our table will be created, and we are ready to go to implement that into our React application. So this takes a while. Well, let me already jump back to our React application, because we here we are going to add the handler which handles our swipe. So for that we can call an event on the Tinder card which is so-called onSwipe, and here we do get a direction, and here we say, so when direction is right, so our like side, we simply call our function which will be called handle add to, let's name it just add to Watchlist, and otherwise we won't be doing anything. Okay, so let's create that function, which is, I guess, a sync. So inside of here we are going to need our Supabase client. Okay, and here in add to Watchlist we can say counts data and error. Let's say await Supabase from. Here we have to specify the table where we're fetching from. Then we say insert, since we want to insert some data. And here we need to pass the values, which will be movie ID. So this will be the movie ID, which we need, which we will be fetching here. So let's say movie, and let's pass this movie here, movie ID, and we also need to pass the user ID, which here will be auf.user.id. And of course we need to import our useAuth hook. Call it just like we did before. It's const. Okay, so that will be working now. Okay, and as usual we say if we get an error, log that. And we also can here set a message as we did in the pages before. So let's create that state. And if we do get data back, let's set message movie has been added to your watch list. So let's add it right here. Okay, so now I think we are good to go. So let's check that if this is already working. So let's go back to our app, open up the console, and now let's swipe to right. Cannot read properties of reading null. Okay. So it's from the user ID, I guess. Okay, so okay, so of course we need to log in. So let's catch that by saying here here let's say that we just render the movies if we, well, let's add it to the use effect hook. So if user then fetch movies. Okay. We don't be fetching any movies if we are not logged in. And so this won't return anything. And here we can say we don't have a user. Say please sign up. It's okay for now. Okay, now at our home screen, we now say, please sign up. Let's give it an H2, so since we already have a H1. Yeah, we could link that, but yeah, let's go to the sign in page and let's sign in via the magic link. Okay, logic link has been sent, so this is still working. Let me check my emails. I'm getting the magic link. All right, now we are logged in. Okay, so we needed to add, of course, the of object to the dependencies, so the use effect will be recalled. So now we get our movies. Okay, and now let's try to add this movie to our watch list. Okay, so yeah, that's okay. So new row violates row level security policy for table watch list. So as I mentioned before, we need to add some policies to our watch list. So because, did I mention that? I don't know. Now I mention it. So we need to add some policies to our table because we are now not allowed to to alter our tables. So here when you go to authentication under the policies tab, we can now add new policies. So you can either choose from a template or from scratch. So let's go by template and we can say enable read access to everyone. Okay, this is the SQL statement for that. Let's say use this template, and yeah, here we see the using expression is set to true when we select. Okay, so this is good for our propose now. Add policy enable access to all users. Save. So this is for fetching data. So let's another one, add another one. Enable insert access for authenticated users. Enable update access for user based on their email, or enable delete access for users based on their user ID. So that's actually what we want to use, but not only for deleting, but also for inserting data. So yeah, let's add this one first. So for delete, let me copy that. So because that's what we're gonna need for our insert policy as well. So let's check that. So the authentication user ID has to be the user ID. Save that. And let's add another one for insert as well. You have to give it a name. So enable insert for the user And the last one will be the update function, and here we are going to pass that as well and say enable update for user based on user ID. Okay, you can check that policy here again, set save policy. And now our table should be ready to save data from our React application. So let's get back here, reload a page, and now swipe to right. And ta-da! So movie has been added to your watch list. So now when we go back to our tables down here, sorry, it's up here. When you click on watch list, now we see an ID, our user ID, and the ID of the movie. So data is now stored in our database. And now we want to display this watch list. So for that, let's go back to our application. And now let me close that for now and open up profile. So here we are going to display the watch list. Okay, so what we here are going to need is use effect and use state, as well as we are going to need the Supabase client, and also we will be needing our use auth hook. For now, that should be okay. So here we are going to, in the use effect hook, we say that we want to fetch our watch list. So let's call a function which we will be naming get watch list. Let's create that here. Say const get watch list. Needs to be async. Okay. And then here we can say const data error await not Axios but Supabase, and here say from watch lists select, and we only want these one which are matching with our ID. So here we say user ID is auth.user.id. Of course, we need to call our hook here. So let me check that. If we needs to be inside of this function, of course, and if we get an error, say console log error. Back in our application, let me close that for now. Get an array of 4. Okay, and actually what we are only going to need is the movie ID. So what we can add to our get function here is, let's say we only want movie ID. Okay, so now we should be getting only the IDs. Okay, and here we can say if data. We need a for loop now because we're going to iterate over the data object which we are getting. And here we say const movie from of data. And here we are going to make a fetch for each movie. So let's copy from our home page this function where we get our movies, and let's adjust that. So here we don't say discover, and let's use backticks for that, and add the movie ID Okay, so this is the endpoint, and here we don't need the page anymore. Okay, so inside of this data object then will be a single movie information, and we need to store that in an array. So let's create that. Say that movies, the array, and down here inside of the for loop we are going to push our movies array with the data object. And now we should have here an array with the movie data. Okay, so this worked very well. So now let's save them in a movies state. Okay, so we already have this use state book imported. So let's say const movies, set movies use state, and set it to an empty array initially. Let's remove that. Let's say set movies, set it to this movies array. All right, and now what we need to do is down here say render, let's say render watch list. And let's create that function here, const render watch list, and here we will be returning whatever we get from that map. So for each movie, return a movie card. Now we need to pass the movie object here as a prop, and we should be ready to go. So let's check that in our application. Okay, we get a list, so we need to add the key prop. And as we see here, we get 3 movies or 4 movies, but this is a CSS issue. So let's fix that. So when we say here static, should be good. So bum. Yeah, that's stupid. So yeah, so I made a mistake, but let's here say swipe true, and inside of movie card we pass that as a prop, and here we then can say movie, and if swipe, add a class called swipe, otherwise don't add any other. And let's here say movie.swipe will be position absolute. Okay, so this should fix our problem. Okay, so this is okay for now. Now let's maybe add here some kind of grid inside of profile. Simply create a div for the class of grid, and then we can say here grid display grid gap of 15 pixels, as well as template column grid template columns, make it a 3-column grid. All right, so now maybe let's add the covers. So this is not so pretty for now. So let's go to movie card, and here we can say if movie poster path. So if we have a movie poster path, Let's return that. Otherwise we say no image. And as source, we're going to need the poster path. As well as the URL. So let me copy that from the movie database. Okay, this then looks like this. And let's remove the heights. Okay, so this is not totally perfect, but now we have our watch list. And what we now can add is a button to delete from our watch list. Okay, so we can add the Godfather to our watch list. Then it appears here on the profile in our watch list. And let me close that. Now back in our profile, let's add it here to our render watchlist function. Let's say button. Move from watchlist, and let's give it an on-click event, which says remove from watchlist. And now let's create that function here. And here we will be passing the movie ID again. So let's change that to that. And let's pass the movie ID here. And we are going to retrieve it here. So then in remove from watchlist, we have to say const data error as usual. We say await. We need to set this function async. Await Supabase from watchlist. And here we say delete. And match. So movie ID needs to match with the ID which we are passing here, as well as the user ID has to match with our user ID. Okay. And if this works, so, or if not, if we do get an error, let's say console log error, and if we get a data object, we say, so we want to update our watch list, so then let's call the get watchlist function. Okay, so let's check our application. So let me add some CSS to that button. So let's say button. Here let's add car. Okay. Padding 10 and 15 pixels. Okay, so now in our app again, if we now click on remove from watchlist, let's add a cursor. Okay, we can remove the movies from our watchlist. And then in our Supabase, when we reload our watchlists table, we should now see 2 movies. All right, so these 2 movies are the ones we are seeing here. Okay, so that's it for now.
All right, so this was part 2 of the series. We learned how to persist data in a database with Supabase. Base. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, please make sure to hit the subscribe button. And I hope to see you in the next video.